Here we are in April, but volatility continues throughout 2026. And in today's video, I want to specifically highlight Visa, who is down 13% year to date. I'm going to take you back to February of 2020 when I first started my position in Visa stock. And Visa has always been a company that I have personally loved. And I remember back then, it seemed like I never got an opportunity to start a position because Visa would always trade at a higher multiple than I was willing to pay. But in 2020, I had already been investing in the stock market for 2 years, but I was specifically looking to diversify my portfolio away from mostly tech stocks. For those of you who watched my video on Microsoft, you'll know that the first 3 stocks that I ever got in my portfolio were all tech stocks. So needless to say, I needed to diversify back then, and Visa just seemed like the perfect stock to do so. And back then, I loved learning and studying as much as I could about Warren Buffett. And one story about him personally really stuck with me, and that was the way that he would count soda bottle caps and then would make an investment decision based off of that. I think he would get like hundreds, if not thousands, of soda cap bottles that people would drink and then toss, and then he would count them to see which soda company was selling the most, because obviously the most bottle caps that there were meant that was the number one brand that was being drank at the time. And the story goes that Coca-Cola was the company that he invested in because those were the highest volume of bottle caps that he would find. And I really loved this story and it really resonated with me, so I ingrained it into my personal investment philosophy, and I would try my best to pay attention whenever anybody was making a payment using a card, be it a debit card or a credit card. And what I found was that more often than not, the brand or the company that gave that person that card tended to be Visa. And that is why I was so adamant that I wanted to start a position in Visa back in 2020. And for the OG investors who are currently watching, I'm sure that 2020 rings an immediate bell because that was the year that the stock market took its quickest tumble in recent history. I mean, you can just have a look at this graph here. I first started my position, oddly enough, on my wife's birthday on February the 26th. The price of Visa then was $187 per share, but just have a look at this graph and you will see the amount of volatility that I had coming for me in the next couple of months. In fact, as you can see by the picture here, Visa was down 38% at the bottom compared to when I first started my position. So it always seems to be the case that whenever I start a position, the stock just absolutely crashes. I mean, it never fails. But if you've been watching my channel here for any amount of time, you will know that I personally don't mind. If the stock market wants to give me cheaper prices for a stock that I want to buy anyway, I'll absolutely take advantage of that opportunity. At least in my opinion, for a stock like Visa, it's always been a no-brainer. Visa is such a great company. I mean, just have a look at their revenue growth here that I charted on this graph. Back in 2023, they had revenue of about $33 billion. The following year in 2024, we're up to almost $36 billion. And last year, most recent year in 2025, they hit that $40 billion revenue mark, which just goes to show they are continuing to grow year after year. But probably more important than the revenue growth, how much of that is making its way towards the bottom line? And going back to the graph here, we can have a look at Visa's net income over the last 3 years. Back in 2023, we had net income of $17 billion. In 2024, we're at $19 billion. And in 2025, they hit that $20 billion mark, going down to the bottom line. But what I love the most about Visa is their margins. Just have a look at 2025. Half of the revenue made its way down to the bottom line. Absolutely love to see that as an investor. And I'm sure you can see exactly why Visa rarely trades at a discount. And on top of doing a great job of always growing the top and bottom line, Visa reminds me a lot of Microsoft in that they are both great dividend payers that let me sleep great at night, where I do not have to worry about either of these companies. Specifically, over the last 5 years, Visa has a dividend CAGR that is 15%, which is amazing in my opinion. Now, I do want to point out, because I know somebody's going to be typing it in the comments right now, that Visa does not have a high dividend yield by any stretch of the imagination. Visa's current dividend yield is about 0.89% currently, and I know that that's nothing amazing, but what I do want to highlight is that Visa is growing that dividend at a fast clip, because my personal dividend yield is currently about 1.02%, which is 13 basis points higher than Visa's current dividend yield here in April of 2026. And with 17 years of consecutive dividend growth, I absolutely have no reason to believe that Visa's dividend is going to be shrinking or going away anytime soon. Now, past performance does not guarantee future performance, but I definitely like to know how many years a company has been paying a dividend, because I just know that I can count on them, because to me, reputation goes a long way. And I'm sure it comes as absolutely no surprise that Visa has been struggling just like every other stock in the stock market here this year. So, of course, like I mentioned, any time that Visa gives me an opportunity to build my position, I have to pounce on it. Just have a look at this chart and you'll see that the first time that I bought Visa in 2026 was back in February. Well, it was back on the 17th of February, and that was right around that $320 price mark. So right then and there, I drew a line in the sand and I said, right here is a great price to be buying Visa. And deja vu, just like in 2020, Visa has absolutely fallen off a cliff as soon as I decide to buy. I'm telling you, it happens every single time. But just like in 2020, I continue to buy as Visa's price decreases. Because if you're going to give me a better PE ratio and a higher dividend yield as that price goes down, I'm here for it. And going back to the graph, we can have a look here. March the 2nd, I'm pretty sure that was a dividend reinvestment, but still, it's giving me more shares, so I'm putting it on the graph. The very next day, I bought some more Visa. So on top of my dividend reinvestment, I bought the very next day. That was a little over $315 per share. Fast forward about a week later, I'm buying on March the 9th, and that is about, call it $312 per share. Then, let's go 2 weeks after that, at the very end of March, March the 26th, I'm buying more Visa, and that is a little bit over $305 per share. And finally, in this most recent week that just passed, April the 2nd, I am buying Visa at my cheapest price to date this year, and that was well below $300 per share. So, for those of you who are paying attention, that's over $20 per share that Visa has gone down here since February. And for those of you who are subscribed and watch my videos, shout out to all of my VIPs, by the way, you know that I am always talking about making sure that you have more income than expenses week in, week out, so that every single month you have some money left over just in case the stock market gives you opportunities. And whenever I have an opportunity like right now, I am continuing to buy. But I would love to know your opinion on Visa in the comments below. Do you own Visa in your portfolio? And if you do, what are you doing with your position? Have you gotten out of Visa? Are you just holding throughout the storm? Or are you like me and are building up that position while prices are cheap? If you made it until this point in the video, be sure to give me a like. It helps out tremendously here on the channel. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.